The decision by General Motors to halt production at 5 car plants in North America has sparked anger both on the factory floor and at the top of government. Rising costs and slower car sales are to blame for the loss of more than 14,000 jobs. But the restructuring has been criticised by President Donald Trump, who is quickly on the phone to GM CEO Mary Barra.
I was very tough. I spoke with her when I heard they were closing. And I said, you know, this country's done a lot for General Motors. You better get back in there soon. That's Ohio. And you better get back in there soon. So we have a lot of pressure on them. You have senators, you have a lot of other people, a lot of pressure.
The closures include an assembly plant in Oshawa, Canada, where nearly 3,000 jobs will go.
We are disappointed by GM's decision regarding their plant in Oshawa as part of their global restructuring. Our thoughts are with those whose jobs will be affected and their families.
The end of automotive production in Oshawa is a blow to workers in Canada's manufacturing heartland. Union members walked out in protests ahead of the GM announcement.
I've been here 28 years. I've been through a closure in Scarborough. I've been through a closure in London. I moved my family twice for this company. And they do this to me. It's terrible.
This latest closure is sure to cause ripples of job insecurity throughout GM's supply chain. Luke Barber, Euronews.
Well, let's stay with this story. Alistair Sanford joins us now in the studio to do that and to discuss it a bit more. Good morning, Alistair.
Good morning, Belle.
What's behind this move and how big of a deal is it?
Well, General Motors is the #1 car maker in the United States, and this is described as its biggest restructuring, its first proper downsizing since it declared bankruptcy in 2009 in the wake of the financial crash and the economic slowdown, and it's now described as a turning point in the car industry. It reflects overall a shift in buyers' tastes. They're buying fewer, smaller models and going for things like SUVs. So in America, some well-known models, Chevrolets and Cadillacs, are going to go. Now, the collapse in these traditional sales is said to have hit GM harder than its rivals because it's less flexible than those rivals. It has too many factories that make single models, for example. It also wants to invest in things like electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles, so it's promising to double its spending on things like electric cars and self-driving cars. So at the same time, costs are going up. It's going to reduce its capital spending. It also wants to get ready for the next economic downturn. All that means these jobs are going to go, salaried staff to be cut by 15%, 25% fewer executives. That's provoked all this anger, which we've seen in that report from politicians and the unions.
And how embarrassing is this for Trump? I mean, he promised jobs, not cutting them.
Yes, absolutely. He'd pushed for more manufacturing jobs, a key theme of his 2016 campaign. And since one of the 3 assembly plants that's to go is in Ohio, and that, of course, is a key electoral battleground 2 years ago, will be again in the 2020 presidential election. We've heard that he's not happy. He also had a pretty defensive comment saying these layoffs have nothing to do with tariffs. Now, GM says, of course, that tariffs on imported steel introduced by the Trump administration earlier this year have cost some $1 billion. Now, GM says that hasn't impacted directly on this decision. Even so, it's all part of the increased cost that they're facing. At the same time, they've got lower tax rates, but that hasn't been enough to offset those rising costs. On the positive side, it says it's hiring in new areas, that other facilities are doing very well, things like trucks. Factories there are operating at full speed and finding it hard to keep up with demand. Interestingly, the markets have reacted positively to this. Shares shot up on Wall Street, and there are comments there to the effect that all this is part of a plan to make GM more gym fit in the future.